Now, we do some reading.
We don't have Schlotzsky's in North Carolina.
No shit. Schlotzsky's is delicious.
Yeah, the pizza looks great.
Okay, so we're doing chapter 11 of the TFM book. It's titled Road Trip Raging. Okay? This book came out in 2013. I wrote it when I was 23 years old, straight out of college when I worked at Grand X and we ran TotalFratMove.com, which is not, for the record, what I do anymore. I have my own company, Bolen Media. This man that you see back behind me eating pizza is Chris Coulson. He's my employee number 2 that I just hired. Literally starts tomorrow and will be, yeah, there he is. And Chris is 21. He's from, North Carolina?
Charlotte, yeah.
North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. Just drove 16 hours down here to start his career, so you're looking at a day one fresh meat type of situation here.
Been pretty solid day one, I'd say. We're like 2 hours in, and
It's been the most ridiculous possible day one you could have had so far. So yeah, this book, for those of y'all who are not aware, is just about it's just about the ridiculousness of fraternity life in college. And I went to Texas State University, which is obviously not exactly a high-tier SEC school, so we had a version of fraternity life that was much more broke boy than the version that I became familiar with my friends who went to the University of Texas, Colorado at Boulder, and those were really the only two that I really got really familiar with. But anyway, so I wrote the book as sort of like as realistic of a representation of fraternity life in America right now it's obviously kaput as a result of the shitstorm that we're all enduring as a society. But I wrote it to be as true to form as I could, based on the experience that I had when I was in school from 2005 to 2011. Look, not everybody that goes to school for 8 years has to be a doctor. I got a journalism major. It paid off though. Anyway, this particular chapter of the book, you don't need to know anything else about any of the book. Thank you all for subscribing, by the way. You don't need to know anything else about any of the other chapters of the book to enjoy this one. Just know that the main character's name is Towns, and this chapter is about them driving from their college town to New Orleans in a party bus, as I'm sure many of you have done if you are in fraternities or in college, or were fortunate enough to be before this fucking virus took over our planet. So, let's get into it. Road Trip Raging, Chapter 11. If you're not ready, slap yourself once in the face and you should be good. People always talk about college like there's no opportunity to elongate the experience. I was always told, Towns, college will be the best 4 years of your life. But the truth is that not anyone who graduates from college on time, is a moron. I have a cousin who graduated magna cum laude from Vanderbilt in 3 years. She probably had sober sex, snuck around her dorm's musty hallways a few times, giggling past curfew, and made dean's list all 6 pathetically short semesters spent almost entirely in the library. Congratulations. Every Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, I remind her she's a GDI failure in my eyes. As you know by now, I made sure to take full advantage of every second I earned on campus, leaving a trail of destruction in my wake. Each memory I've shared with you is precious to me, but none more than Alpha's formal during my first senior year. The fraternity's called Alpha. Obviously, I couldn't use a real one. We would have gotten sued. We still almost got sued. Where am I? Even if you decide 5, 6, or 8 years of undergraduate studies are necessary to absorb a suitable dosage of the college experience, you still only get 4 spring formals, assuming you pledge your first semester like a fucking man. For the 3rd consecutive year, we voted New Orleans as our destination, so we were all familiar with the morally corrupt city with which we were dealing. The mind has to be in a disturbed place to handle the shit that occurs in that town, and normal livers can't handle the amount of alcohol we forced ours to absorb during our stay. So I spent weeks preparing myself mentally by skipping class, and physically by drinking, fucking, hazing, and playing golf as much as possible. When it comes to formal, the bus ride ends up being almost half the fun. The 9-hour pilgrimage is nearly as dangerous as Bourbon Street itself, and the seniors bus is indisputably the most volatile, because for us, the old balls, this is the last hurrah, and we just don't give a fuck. During this final voyage, the goal is to shatter any remnants of your moral compass and come out of the 3-day fog with as many inappropriate stories as possible. All the while, it's important to keep your date's level of respect for you or her BAC high enough that she'll still let you drunkenly pound her privates. Otherwise, you'll end up trolling the hallways of the hotel for randoms, or worse. Our caravan of that's a little bit of a what's it called when you tease something that's coming? Help me out, chat. Foreshadowing. There we go. Foreshadowing. Thank you, brain. Uh, yep. Our caravan of charter buses planned to leave at 8 a.m. on Friday to ensure a suitable arrival time in the Big Easy. Some people had Friday class, but showing up wasn't even an option. Weeks ahead of time, Nate and I arranged to take 2 freshman girls from different sororities as our dates. We figured their unfamiliarity with each other would give them the opportunity to discuss the Bachelorette and how much they adore Diet Coke. Apparently, I had met my date and invited her to formal at a bar on a Tuesday night the week before, none of which I remembered. The following day, I received a text from a contact I had saved as simply the number 9. And then there's like the text message. You can see it at the bottom, all right? It says 3:13 p.m. OMG, totes excited about New Orleans. It's going to be the best weekend ever. K, call me soon, towns. 9 exclamation points. It took me an hour or so to figure out who she was, but when I did, I wasn't disappointed. Her name was Katie Groom, and yes, she was stacked. The number 9 must have been my drunken assessment of her good looks. We picked up Katie from the Omega House and Nate's date from Kappa, and then made our way to the frat castle. It was early and I was battling a hangover, so it wasn't until boarding the bus that I realized these 2 rookie slams were both wearing sundresses appropriate for a day at the racetrack. They were completely oblivious to the level of filthiness about to take place during the drive. The drinking started immediately. Coolers were packed in the far back of the bus and spread throughout the aisles. Katie had stuffed mine with a case of Keystone, a bottle of Woodford Reserve, and a box of wine for herself. The backpacks stored in the overhead compartments were crammed full of tobacco products, snacks, and miscellaneous drugs. The instant the driver fired up the diesel engine, Turbo downed a beer bong filled with whiskey. By 10 a.m., he'd be an unstoppable force of destruction, full sprinting in the opposite direction of the finish line that should have been his date's vagina. As we pulled up out of the parking lot, the movie Top Gun began on the TV screens, and Monty started a roaring, USA, USA, USA chant, inaugurating the trip. Some prostitutes I still can't say that word without laughing. Some prostitutes who thought they'd be able to get some sleep were caught off guard by the swift start of binge drinking and obnoxious patriotic noise-making. They reluctantly joined in to avoid standing out like heteros at a gay pride parade. This was written in 2013. One of the more entertaining aspects of the trip was observing the interactions of sorority girls suddenly thrown into a frenzied situation together. The spirit of camaraderie between brothers was at an all-time high. Testosterone was flowing, high fives were exchanged, and beers were being shotgunned on every aisle. Contrarily, the awkward disdain that the grab bag of random dates pretend not to have for each other was also at an all-time high. Miraculously, 2 girls who normally wouldn't acknowledge one another's existence conversed when forced to sit a few feet from one another. I'm no zoologist, but I'm pretty sure this is what it's like when 2 lesbian pandas scissor each other after being caged in captivity for an extended period of time. How is that the analogy I came up with? What in the fuck? I was drinking a lot when I wrote this. The tension was eased with the nonstop flow of Franzia boxed wine, and slowly these girls found they might not be so different after all. Some just prefer Lily Pulitzer to Vera Bradley. Regardless, I feel like that's a dated reference now. Regardless, they had no choice but to become allies if they wished to survive the days ahead, both socially and physically. What else were they going to do? Their dates were too busy drunkenly reminiscing on pledgeship and form tackling each other. 2 hours in, someone toward the front of the bus broke out weed brownies and Adderall, then passed them around to the casual drug users surrounding them. Not only was everyone already buzzed on whatever booze they've decided to start the morning with, but 30 minutes later, several passengers were so high that they struggled to sit still, wide-eyed and grinding their teeth. As I polished off my 7th beer, I asked Katie if she wanted either of the aforementioned substances. She quickly shook her head as she looked at me like a terrified puppy during a violent thunderstorm. No thanks. I'm good with my wine. That's fine, just being a gentleman, I responded as I put my arm around her and gave her a reassuring everything is going to be okay squeeze. I don't know how much we paid these Greyhound bus drivers because I wasn't the fucking treasurer, but it wasn't enough. It seems to me that hauling our hedonistic asses to NOLA would be far more entertaining than driving a bus full of near-death stiffs to an Indian casino, but for whatever reason they didn't appreciate having beer funneled onto their heads while they drove down the interstate in the early morning. The poor guy had already gotten on the loudspeaker twice and respectfully asked that we, quote, calm down a bit. We responded to his request with a chorus of boos, and Turbo shouted, "Do your fucking job, peasant!" By noon, things really started to get out of hand. The line for the bathroom on the bus was unacceptable, so Nate made his date into a human curtain so he could piss into a bottle of already half-filled dip spit. Everyone was entirely too fucked up, and the drivers pulled over in the middle of nowhere to gas up and give people a chance to grab some fresh air. This was every gas station's bad, wet dream. 3 buses of drunken lunatics descending onto their property, knocking over aisles of chips and gum and blowing hundreds of dollars on pork rinds and sexual lubricant. They had a rack of American flag bandanas. It was gone. They had 50 packs of Marlboro Lights. They vanished. A few of the couples didn't exit the bus, but awkwardly remained under blankets trying to play off the fact that they were participating in dry hand jobbing and finger blasting. I'm so sorry, Mom. Everyone else chain-smoked cigarettes outside and raided the gas station for munchies, more nicotine and more alcohol. I stumbled through the store into the restroom where I found Turbo blowing chunks all over the wall, laughing hysterically as Monty laughed in the stall next to him. "Turbo, you all right there, Chief?" Yeah, I'm fine. Why do you ask? Parentheses, projectile vomit. Well, you're spewing all over the wall. Aim at the fucking toilet, psycho. I'll see you back on board. Once everyone was corralled onto their respective buses, the browbeaten driver attempted to do a head count. He gave up, mumbled something under his breath, and stepped on the gas. Back on the road, 5 hours in, the chaos continued. Most of the guys had drowned themselves and their dates in enough alcohol to initiate sloppy midday makeouts, clumsily fondling each other. Parcells and Rogers were crushing up Adderall and snorting it to stay awake. Monty and his perpetual girlfriend Sarah were in one of their good phases, so he'd invited her along and had her straddling him in the back row with a blanket wrapped around them. I'm 99% sure there was some shameless public penetration going on. As he smiled and gave a double thumbs up behind her back, I took a picture with Katie's camera, hoping it would be posted on Facebook for at least a couple hours before it got taken down. What an asshole. Others were slowly coming in and out of consciousness as we rolled toward the Sin City of the South. Had anybody ever called it that before? Did I invent that? I'm gonna say I invented it. All right. So then after each chapter, there's like a little fucking explanation thingy. It says, pack 25 guys with hot dates onto a charter bus filled with as much alcohol as it can hold. Tell them they're about to have the time of their lives getting blackout drunk in another city, and then crank up the tunes and let the good times roll. That's the vibe on one of these buses, and it makes for some damn good TFMs. So if y'all remember the TFMs from back in the day when TFM was hot, the wall that was the main part of the website that provided all these little one-liner jokes that ended in TFM, right? So each chapter also of the book ends with some of those. This one is TFMs on road trips. The only time you'll find me on a bus is on the way to formal. TFM. Making charter bus drivers wish they'd chosen a different profession. TFM. Pissing out the bus window at 70 miles per hour. TFM. Talking shit to the driver because he hit a pothole during your keg stand. TFM. Using your blazer as a blanket to turn an OTPHJ, that stands for over the pants hand job, into a good old-fashioned on the bus. TFM. The collective at the charter bus piss stop. TFM. Never getting back the security deposit for the bus. TFM. On a road trip, we don't visit places. We pillage and destroy. We're basically just really well-dressed Vikings. TFM. And that is the end of chapter 11. We also have some photos at the end of each chapter to represent the ridiculousness. This says luggage, TFM, and as you can see, it's just like 40 racks of beer. This says being discreet, TFM, and it appears to be a young man receiving a blowjob on a bus, which, again, I'm not positive how we legally got published into this novel. This was done by like a legitimate publishing company. Grand Central Publishing published this book. It's a New York Times best-selling novel, and yet we have a photo of a young man getting dome in it. You try pulling that off.
Stay classy.
Yeah, stay classy, America. And then we've got this final one that says, almost getting hit doing a Louisville chugger in the middle of the street. And it's a guy doing one, and as you can see, there's a fucking dude hurling towards him on a fucking scooter. For all I know, he did get hit. These photos were all sent to us on TotalFratMove.com, and then we were able to get the legal permission to get them used in the book. But for the sake of saving one more, I didn't want to do both tonight, and we have one more chapter next week and the prologue, I believe it's called. That's the one that comes after, right? Or is it epilogue? I always forget. Who knows? Epilogue. The next chapter, next Sunday at 9 p.m. Central, is titled Bourbon Street Brutality, and it is the madness that takes place on this formal in New Orleans after this charter bus crew caravan actually arrives. So, yeah, if you want more of that, 9 p.m. Central, Sunday, next Sunday. We're finishing it out. We've been doing this the last several Sundays. If you would like to hear any more of the readings from the book, they are all available on youtube.com/Bolen Media, which I will put up in the little chat right now. And you can also find